Welcome back. So I am hoping we will be able to finish up our tour of bedrooms today. And what we are going to be looking at is modern bedrooms and trying to isolate the elements of these bedrooms that we have seen in bedrooms of the past. See if we can find themes and patterns, in part because that will help us predict where bedroom design is going in the future, but mostly because we've acquired this store of knowledge. We know what bedrooms have looked like for the last 100 years, and now we're going to take a look at what they look like today and see if we can see where the design elements have come from. So, when we come back, so the bedroom we are starting with is this one. Largely monochromatic. It's black, white, and a silvery gray and some bronze. Now, we know where we saw this from. This was the 90s, when bedrooms were very black and white, when it was hard to tell if our bedroom picture was a black and white photograph or a color photograph, because frankly, they were all black and white anyway. But let's see what we can pull out here. Yes, we have our black and white. Notice the bedside lamps are actually hanging from the ceiling. This is something new. This is something that we began seeing in the 21st century. Now, prior to this time, and we know this from having taken a look at images from the 70s, these so-called swag lamps, the lamps on chains, were becoming popular in the 70s, but only for a brief period of time. It looks like in the 21st century, designers have taken that basic idea and they've run with it. This is, in fact, something I've seen a lot of in designs over the past 20 years. Also, let's take a look at how our bed is made, because this too is something new. We don't have a fancy bedspread and coverlets and pillow shems and whatever on our bed. We simply have the bedding. We have a blanket laid across the foot of the bed, but the rest of this is our sheets, our blanket, no dedicated bedspread on top of it. So let's talk about bedspreads very briefly, because this is a discussion we probably should have had very early on. Why a bedspread? Well, a bedspread kept your bedding clean and dust-free. That was the primary purpose of it, something to throw over a bed to keep it from getting grubby. In particular, you wanted to protect your blankets, because for a long time, most blankets were wool. They couldn't be thrown into the washing machine. When they changed over to polyester, then we had a large percentage of these blankets having electrical wires in them, because electric blankets had become popular. Once again, not as if you could unplug them from the wall and throw them in the washer. So the bedspread, coverlet, duvet, whatever you threw on top of your bed, was something that had a practical purpose, not just the aesthetics of creating a pretty room. However, as always, when we have a functional item, before long, we figure out how to turn that functional item into a decorative statement. And in the 50s and 60s in particular, we were matching our bedspread to our draperies and coordinating it to all the rest of the colors in the room. Well, with the bedspread gone and nothing more than the bedding here, we're not doing that anymore, but the bedding itself has become decorative. Now, there was a period, we all remember this, when bed sheets were brightly colored with flowers and stripes and plaids and whatever. We seem to have gotten away from that and gone over to white. I personally will only use white sheets and pillowcases, and for me, that is a strictly practical consideration. White sheets and pillowcases can be washed in very hot water and they can be bleached. So for me, it's strictly a sanitary issue. But as we start looking at bedrooms post-pandemic, oh yeah, I can see some very good reasons for people wanting to go over to white bedding. So what we have here, just to sum up, is a 2020s bedroom that is still pulling a lot of its design inspiration from the 1990s. However, we are seeing touches from the more remote past. For example, this wild wallpaper. It's very much a modern version of the wallpaper we saw on bedrooms in the 40s and 50s. Now this one, again, we have this wallpaper. It's sort of, I guess you could call it a mural pattern. In this room, once again, we have that 90s black and white thing. There's some gray, obviously, and it's broken up by a little bit of color on the back wall, which again is picked up in a throw pillow. What we are seeing here, though, is notice those lamps. Those table lamps would probably be quite comfortable in a 1950s bedroom. So we're sort of snatching some old school designs here. The night tables, again, not 1950s. This is a style of the 2020s. Still, we are seeing something that might have been the sort of thing you would see in the 1950s. So we're seeing a lot of retro influences here. This one, again, we have this very limited palette. We are mostly white in this bedroom, and we have a canopy bed with no canopy. We have the canopy frame, or perhaps we would call it a tester frame. It's kind of hard to say. No bed skirt. Notice that. In fact, the bed frame has a little decorative rail on the bottom, which would preclude putting a bed skirt on the bed. This was designed to be a bed with bedding that does not extend to the floor. We haven't seen that, at least not consistently, since the 1920s or 30s. In many ways, this bedroom appears to be a throwback to the 80s, that sort of almond, and of course we have the white, and the canopy beds were things that came in the 1980s. But our rooms have become very monochromatic. Now here, once again, we have that same sort of canopy bed. But please note, this is nothing but a box of 2x4s. We have a small platform on the floor and a frame, an empty frame, and the bed is sitting on top of it. So that canopy, well, there's no canopy. That canopy frame is not part of the bed. It's a separate and distinct piece of furniture that is merely allowing the bed to sit upon it. Still, this is a sort of 80s carryover. And notice, we've still got our 80s colors here with that sort of almond in the very, very light brown woods. That particular shade of wood, this bleached wood, that was very 50s, by the way, but becoming popular now. Also, notice that the bedside lamps are these high-function halogen. They could come off an architect's design table. So we're definitely doing interesting little things, mostly monochromatic or black, white, gray, with the addition of this bleached wood into the mix. So we're starting to see the patterns. Now, this is a modern bedroom. We don't see very much of it, but we do see a few touches. This is the Jenny Lind bed. We talked about that. It was very popular in children's rooms. It became popular in children's rooms in the 1940s. Prior to that, this was a hugely popular bed style in the 19th century. It was named after the Swedish opera star Jenny Lind. She had nothing to do with the beds. Just an enterprising furniture maker decided to capitalize on the popularity of Jenny Lind's smash American tour. I know, you thought only the Spice Girls did that. Nope, Jenny Lind did it in the 19th century. So the furniture manufacturer slapped Jenny Lind's name on the bed, and boy, did it become a smash. So we have a beautiful antique bed here, or at least an antique style. Once again, no bed skirt. It is not going down to the floor. We simply have a blanket on top. That, if you remove the bed from the room, you could be looking at a 1920s or 1930s bed. No two ways around it. Very limited color palette. Looks like we've got off-white and chocolate in the room, the walls, the curtain, even the off-white in the rug, and then offset with a sort of dark blue. Really simple, very effective. And notice this very interesting, very modern lighting fixture hanging from the ceiling. I wish we could see more of this room because, frankly, it's very engaging. And here we go, modern boho. Now, I try very hard to include a little boho in all of these because I know how many of you tend to gravitate toward that decorating style. I do myself because it's relaxed, it's eclectic, and it's a fabulous way to express your own unique personality. Your idea of boho is not going to be mine. Mine is not going to be yours. And, of course, they are colorful. And here we have pink blue and this yellow with gray walls. The bed here appears to be quite high. This is rather unusually high for a bed. Sort of, you need steps to get up there. Still, very comfortable looking. The night tables on either side of the bed, I don't know if they are antiques. They might be. They might merely be modern pieces in an older style. Very warm, inviting room, and we are seeing color, but not spunk-eyed color. We're starting to get the impression that these rooms are relaxing spots. Now, here we go. Modern bedroom, we can see the color scheme is more 80s than 90s. Remember, the 80s were almond and oak. That's what we wanted then. We were in the same color family from light beige to sort of dark beige. Again, we have all of this busy stuff behind the headboard. No painting there, and that's something we got used to in the 70s and 80s. in particular the 90s, when we were throwing up entire collages of pictures over the bed. But we still do have this bed wall as a focal point. And in this case, it seems to be some sort of integrated combination of a focal point wall with a lighting fixture spanning the top of the room with end tables that are matching. Very 80s color scheme. However, you look at this and you can see it's not an 80s bedroom. It's been influenced by the 80s, but that's as far as it goes. Now here, once again, also we have a platform bed here. And if you look closely, you can see where the mattress stops and the bed platform begins. We have that same 90s color scheme, but it is livened up with some 80s color. So we have the black, white, gray, but we also have the brown wood tones and the almond. Very interesting. It certainly looks modern, but you can see where they've reached back into the previous couple of decades and pulled their color scheme. Now this is more of a throwback than some of the others, because we have that collage of pictures over the headboard. However, we have the same sort of white look in the bedroom that we have been seeing in the last several pictures. Very much white. And that seems to be the dominant color for the 2020s in bedrooms. Just white. This reminds me of the 80s for a very different reason, though. It's that tongue and groove paneling on the ceiling and the peaked cathedral ceiling. That, just in terms of architecture, was a huge thing in the 80s. So when I look at a room like this, the room itself, rather than the furniture, says to me, ooh, 1980s. By the way, I do think that was a nice design. It sort of fell out of fashion, I guess. You know, who knows? I find it too bad because I like high ceilings. And I also always enjoyed the unexpected notion of what we would consider to be flooring boards on the ceiling. But again, notice we are very white here, and that is something we're going to see more of. Oh, here, super white. Yes, absolutely. This screams modern bedroom. One of the things we are seeing in this bedroom, and this is something I've seen in many bedrooms that we've looked at in the last 20 years, beds are becoming more comfy. Remember back in the 50s, the bed looked like a box. You could have thrown that bedspread over a cardboard box just as easily as you could have thrown it over your mattress, and how would you know the difference? A bed like this, no, that does not look like a squared off cardboard box. That looks like a comfortable soft mattress with thick fluffy comforters and plenty of pillows, and that is 21st century. Now this is interesting because in addition to furniture that, frankly, I don't believe that that settee, chaise, fainting couch, whatever you want to call it, is an antique piece. It appears to be styled on the lines of an antique piece. The furniture in the room is intended to look older. Whether it is older, I can't say. Some of the interesting things in this room is the room itself, the very elaborate cornice and coffered ceiling, and boy, you got to work hard to compete with that. We not only have the canopy / tester frames that we've had in previous images, but we've actually got draperies on this. Very 21st century. Meanwhile, notice, predominant color is white, and the only other touches of color we have are brown and black, and that's it. Oh, I'm sorry, we have a little green plant in the corner. That's it. That's our color. Now, I definitely wanted to include this room because this is a different sort of 21st century bedroom. Now, my goodness, we absolutely have a serious tester bed here. Definitely. But we may not have a lot of color. Everything is overwhelmingly beige in here. But boy, we have a lot of print, a lot of pattern. And not just on the bedding, but on the underside of the tester. And they're all in the same color range, but it's not the same prints repeated over and over again. We have a lot of variety in these prints. Still, because it's all in this sort of washed out beige range, it doesn't seem overwhelming. I suspect, and we'll see if I'm right, I suspect this may be one of the directions we'll see bedrooms moving in the future. So, time will tell if I'm right on this, but I do see this as probably likely to be a bedroom of the 2030s. Now, this one is absolutely great. What we have here is clearly a 2020s bedroom, but notice the heavy Art Deco influence here, particularly in this sort of upholstered backdrop for the bed. I'm reluctant to call it a headboard because it fills the whole wall. So deco. And we see that picked up in the vases on the night tables, in this strange, what is that, a sunflower on the wall. The sunflower, by the way, was not an Art Deco image. And this jigsaw puzzle sort of art where, you know, it actually consists of 5 separate pieces intended to be hung together. That is very modern. But the overall impression of this is very, very deco. It's also very 1980s because we've got beige and brown once again. Now, this room has been obviously heavily influenced from the 90s because we still have that black and white palette. We have a little more color coming in, particularly in the throw pillows. I love the fact that the throw pillows are not matching. They're not symmetrical. I like the fact that the art is not matching and not symmetrical. It just throws in a little bit of whimsy, and I do appreciate that. Also, the furniture. We can only see the night tables, but again, not matching, not symmetrical. Good for them. A very interesting 21st century interpretation of a 1990s bedroom. Now this one, boy, we can see a lot from the past here. Our color scheme, black and white and gray, is the very neutral scheme we are starting to be able to identify with late 20th, early 21st century. Notice we have a built-in dresser along one wall, and I'm sure you'll remember that from the bedrooms we saw in the 1950s. Boy, just paint that white or red or some other fabulous 50s color, and you could be right at home and leave it to Beaver's house. Also, notice the headboard, and this is something we talked about in the 70s when it became fashionable to simply hang an item on the wall for example, a section of a picket fence and say, look, this is our headboard. That's clearly what they've done here. It's interesting to note there are no night tables here. No nightstands, no end tables, nothing close to the bed. That is not something that I have seen repeatedly in rooms from the modern era. So I don't know what that means. That might mean they are disappearing. It could just be that this room is a bit of a blip on the radar. But I did want you to see it because it's such a modern instantiation of a couple of older ideas that we've seen before. Now this, again, I'm thinking this is probably the bedroom of the 2030s. This is probably where bedrooms are moving to. We have an almost monochromatic color scheme here. Beige, going from light beige into a dark sort of cafe au lait on the draperies, a few touches of black. But overall, this is a room that is just one color. If it wasn't for the little plant in the corner, we would have no color at all here. That does seem to be where bedroom design is heading. Now this is great because this bedroom has touches of what we would now call Hollywood Regency. And we saw the Hollywood Regency style start to come out in the 1930s. We saw a little more of it in the 1950s, but it was the bright, shiny, goldy, brassy, glittery surfaces. And a bedroom like this, it wouldn't take very much for you to convince me that that was a 1930s bedroom. I can see so many touches. It's interesting, we still have a very soft color palette, but with this pale slate blue, we are seeing a little more color come in. And I do love that night table. It's just, ooh, very Hollywood Regency. Yummy. Now, this room is more coordinated than rooms we have seen thus far. The material on the draperies is repeated in the throw pillows on the bed. We do have a bed skirt. Nevertheless, that mattress, boy, there's nothing squared off or tailored about that. That looks like a giant white marshmallow. What we have in terms of color, again, is a very, very limited palette. This is one of those rooms where you would be hard-pressed to differentiate between a black and white photo and a color photo. Overwhelmingly white, so I am going to just throw this out and say white is the bedroom color for the 2020s. And now let's take a quick look at children's bedrooms because I've tried to include them. And we have a few images here and we have some patterns that you can clearly see emerging. I don't know if this is a boy's bedroom or a girl's bedroom, and boy, am I delighted by that as a concept. I love not being able to tell if a little boy or a little girl lives here. That's great. We have a muted color scheme with that blonde wood furniture. The walls are gray, moving into a darker gray for the work center desk area. Notice the way they've taken full advantage of this giant picture window. You just don't need art in your walls when you have a great view. The bed is on a platform. The platform has storage underneath it and steps. Boy, are you going to see steps in these children's bedrooms. This is the new thing. The children's bedrooms of the 2020s are built on levels. We have a mattress on top of our platform bed, a ton of pillows, and even the chair, boy, looks like it's just covered in wonderful fuzziness. This is probably a great place for a kid to fall asleep at night. Now here's another one. Once again, I can't tell you if this is a boy's room or a girl's room. In the 1950s and 60s, boys' rooms were blue, girls' rooms were pink, and boy, you could sure tell the difference. Here, no. Now, once again, we have the platform bed, we have steps leading up to it, we have storage below. That is absolutely a thing in modern children's bedrooms. I like the fact that we have some color here. Unexpected color too, blue, orange, yellow. Very interesting. It's bright without making you crazy. And obviously you don't want to make a little kid hyperactive in their own bedroom. But this is a very attractive little bedroom. Now here is yet another one. Once again, we've got the bed raised and we've got storage underneath. In this case, it looks like we have art supplies and project storage. Please note, there are a few things in here that I think are worth paying attention to. The little bedside table, boy, that could have come out of a mid-century modern bedroom. I love it. It's such a wonderful retro touch. The same with the desk chair. That one could have come out of a bedroom from the 1960s. I do love this ceiling. I don't know if this is, in fact, a bedroom in an attic, or if they have reproduced an attic-style ceiling. Whatever it is, I love it to pieces. Very nice, very interesting space. More steps with storage underneath. And in this case, the bed is just a mattress on top of the platform. Very engaging space. We've got color here. And it's interesting because the color isn't in the room. The room is white. The furniture is bleached wood that's practically white. Our color is coming from easily changeable things like the blanket on the bed and the little mobile over the bed. If you're going to do a child's bedroom, the way to throw color and pattern in is in easily changeable things like a picture on the wall, a mobile hanging from the ceiling, a blanket on the bed. Why? Because kids grow so quickly and their tastes change so quickly. If you can redo their bedroom with the addition of a new blanket or a new print on the wall, you can get much more life out of this. And by the way, this furniture is available. You can buy this sort of platform bed unit. You don't have to be a carpenter to make it. I specifically tried to stay away from the bedrooms that would have required the homeowner to have artistic or carpentry skills to recreate them, because there are many fantasy bedrooms out there for children that are just divine. But if you don't have a degree in graphic arts, you're not going to be able to pull it off. So I wanted to take a look at things that were available to all of us, regardless of our DIY level. Now, these last two bedrooms, because we're coming to the end, are bedrooms that I believe were probably designed for older children. This one I'm not so sure about because there are pictures of teddy bears on the wall. However, there are plenty of books but no toys. So I don't know. Is this a toddler's bedroom? It's got the teddy bears. Is this a teenager's bedroom? It's got all the books. So your guess is as good as mine. I like this. Even though this is that same bland 80s, white going into tan, in this case going into mustard. Very limited and non-engaging color palette, I really do think this is a very attractive bedroom, particularly if you're dealing with a teenager. Notice that the bedroom is pretty much based around a few pieces of furniture that have a sort of bought at IKEA kind of look to them. They may well be IKEA pieces. If you have a can of spray paint, you can pull these wooden handles off the pieces of furniture, spray paint them any color you please, and have this bedroom, instead of in this sort of mustard yellow, have it in any color you want: pink, purple, yellow, green. Your imagination is your limit. Probably a very, very easy, and if I'm right about this being IKEA, a very inexpensive room to replicate. Now here is another one, very much the same as the last one, because we're dealing with white and avocado green. Now we get the avocado green, as we know, from the 1970s. This is our green. In the 1970s, however, this bedroom would have been loaded up with yellow and orange and probably a little hot pink. No, we have two colors here. We have white, we have avocado. And this is a Murphy bed. The bed folds up into the wall, into that cabinet. Very, very clever idea for teenagers who might in fact want more lounging space in the afternoons than bed space, for example. The bed may be something they want to pull out at night after their friends and, the Nintendos all go home. Interesting. This is indeed the sort of thing that anyone, even with really limited do-it-yourself skills, could replicate, because it's just a question of painting up a few pieces of your furniture. Pull the drawers out of the desk, paint the drawer front, stick it back in, voila, you are done. It's an attractive room. It's the only fault I find with this is it tends to kind of lack personality. You gotta wonder, is a real child living in this room? Because real children tend to express more of their real childlike personalities. Anyway, this is where we are stopping. We've taken a look at bedrooms from the past. We're looking at bedrooms from the present, and I think we can all make our own judgments about where it goes from here. You've heard a couple of my predictions. Time to make your own. So, thank you for indulging me on this wonderful little tour of the past. I will see you all tomorrow. We're going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. Meantime, have a terrific day.